Common sense would lead you to believe that a left-leaning, supposedly, hear him?
You're gonna pull this closer. Here, go ahead.
Okay.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yes,
Better?
that actually sounds way better. Yes.
Okay, so common sense would lead you to believe that a left-leaning, supposedly pro-pot governor and champion of social equity initiatives would have spent Juneteenth in the trenches with the people. Supporting black-owned retailers, making, some vague pandering statements as politicians do, equating social equity to the Emancipation Proclamation or some shit like that. Same performative bullshit. Politicians love checking off their to-do lists for photo ops, showing genuine connection to the people, they do it all for the gram. It's all for the photo op, right? As we've seen, especially in New York. But for some reason, New York Governor Kathy Hochul's team did not pop out, and she was not invited to any cookouts, and she did not hop in to any of those cookouts uninvited either.
Well, that's because she doesn't buy anything when she goes to stores.
Yeah, well, she's a governor. She can still, she has the key to the state.
She doesn't know the auntie dance.
What's that?
She doesn't know how to do the auntie dance.
She got to do the auntie dance?
No.
Someone got to teach her how to do something. Maybe take her to Africa. I don't know.
Can we leave that? Oh, what?
But Hochul's team instead chose to use this year's Freedom Day to take a premature victory lap, celebrating her administration's leadership behind the alleged closure of more than 100 trap shops, seizing a claimed $30 million in unregulated product. They also announced legal state cannabis sales were up 27% in the same period, without citing exactly where those numbers were coming from and how it was calculated. Clearly taking credit for something the administration had little, if nothing, to do with. And why I told you all yesterday that something was up with those numbers, and we all agreed.
Those were funny numbers.
I do got to give show love to Jimmy Devine, who took the High Times this morning to let us know why #hoodwinked by Hochul was trending heavily in New York cannabis circles on Wednesday. Devine reported that advocates held a rally on Tuesday, Juneteenth Eve, if you will, following last week's revelations by the city's Rosalind Adams, showing the plan to finance New York's cannabis industry move forward despite the major concerns of numerous people involved in the process of implementing the state's recreational cannabis program. The rally included elected officials, social justice advocates, and people impacted personally by New York's longtime war on cannabis. They hope to protect the progressive aspects of New York's legalization law, preventing corporate control and increasing the weight of community voices moving forward. Same bullshit we've heard everywhere. It just doesn't happen. Chief among those advocates' concerns across 500 emails obtained by the city got access to was the fact that the deal was trash. It sucked. Devine said that the things that immediately raised eyebrows included steep costs and unreasonable repayment timelines, the same concerns previously raised by with Hochul as her office pushed to make her previous promises on funding the cannabis program a reality. Here's what was said. The social equity component of the MRTA is absolutely essential for our cannabis in Brooklyn and Queens. This is what Senator Julia Salazar said. MRTA implementation is a chance to address the harm that too many New Yorkers have experienced due to many years of criminalization. But the encroachment of big cannabis corporations in the New York market poses a threat to MRTA's success, especially for small legal cannabis businesses. For the good intent of MRTA to become a reality for more communities of color and justice-impacted New Yorkers, we need Governor Hochul to allow the Cannabis Control Board to function as an independent body, and for the Office of Cannabis Management to be empowered to continue to implement the MRTA equitability. Salazar hit the nail on the heart in terms of who should be taking the lead. The concerns for New York's Office of Cannabis Management about the funding deal were ignored. Following the struggle for New York to provide true access statewide, the OCM was thrown under the bus for the state's failure, despite raising numerous red flags that they found and raised about the Chicago Atlantic Group deal. The city noted that an OCM official, a financial analyst, used all caps to note how bad the deal really was. Devine continued to point out that the Drug Policy Alliance, DPA, calls New York City home and has been at the forefront of the work to get New York legal over the years. When the news broke, DPA Executive Director Cassandra Frederique Great name there.
That's why.
Great name.
That's why New York's such a mess.
Jesus.
Straight up.
Clean that shit up.
It's true.
Right.
Director Cassandra Frederic offered a scathing critique of Hochul's administration, deciding to move forward with a predatory lender that exploited black and brown cannabis licensees while keeping lawmakers in the dark. Per the article, Frederic called the Hochul administration's mishandling of the legal marijuana rollout deeply concerning and strikingly echoed the governor's congestion pricing reversal. In both instances, she bypassed the legislature's will and rejected agency expertise to enact sweeping changes without a concrete plan. It's also now clear that her administration knew of Dasney's failures to build retail space and ignored repeated warnings from the Office of Cannabis Management about predatory loans harming mostly black and brown licensees. Instead of addressing these issues, the Hochul administration agreed to unfavorable loan terms with a disreputable creditor and then scapegoated the former OCM leader for the rollout's failures. She then went on to note how devastating this was to the communities of color most decimated by the war on drugs. What Governor Hochul calls social equity has only made cannabis licensees more vulnerable to exploitation. Our communities deserve better, real equity, real opportunities, and an administration that actually follows the law's intent. The governor must present a clear plan for delivering the next phase of our justice-centered cannabis framework in accordance with the law. Advocate, activist, and also founder and director of drug policy think tank Parabola Center, the one and only Shailene Title, shared a few surprisingly balanced thoughts with Divine in High Times on the latest New York social equity drama. Here's what she had to say. The governor's narrative that the Office of Cannabis Management was inexperienced deserves further examination. The new evidence shows that the governor's office ignored OCM's warnings and moved ahead with a failed initiative and then used the OCM and its leadership as a scapegoat. We called that, do we not? Many times. But she also noted that any fair evaluation of New York's rollout, comparing its metrics against its own goals and metrics in other states, demonstrates that New York leads the nation in terms of racial equity in cannabis. Not surprising, given its staff has been led by some of the country's top experts on cannabis and equity, data, civil rights law, and antitrust law, end quote. Devine closed out the article by highlighting that ahead of the rally outside Hochul's office, DPA noted other positives from New York's rollout being overshadowed in the controversy of the moment, including things like 95% of New York's cannabis retail market is small businesses and has nearly tripled the number of black-owned retail dispensaries nationwide in just 15 months. So kudos to New York on those numbers. I'd love to believe that, going off of our track yesterday about loving to believe, I would love to believe that Governor Hochul's heart is in the right place on cannabis, as well as with the communities of color who supported her before and throughout her tenure as governor.
They just gaslight her.
Straight up. When she was reelected.
She wasn't elected. She was appointed.
I'm about to show some unity here. Let me cook.
Okay. All right.
And at the end of the day, she is a politician, Democrat or Republican.
She's a Democrat.
It's a given that politicians lie, they skew numbers, and they pander to communities that they have no interest in doing anything else but boosting their own polling numbers.
That's what Democrats do.
On the other hand, for all we know, she could have been in Inglewood at the Forum on Wednesday night. But you know what?
She's not like us.
That's all I fucking come in this fucking studio. She fucking taking my fucking.
Was that where you were going with it?
Oh man, Juneteenth is over. There ain't no unity no more.
There ain't no more unity.
No more unity in the community.
No.
I mean, listen, I don't know how.
No, she is not like us. God damn it, edit that fucking out.
Yes.
Wop. How honest can I be, Jason? Because I remember when she was made official that she was coming back in and what was going to go on with the OCM. And I was sitting at West Hollywood Soho House with someone who was very close to her, and it stated that they already had contracts for a lot of these things that didn't exist yet. So, I mean, like, I think, yeah, Rico, she's a politician, and her pockets were padded. She was pushed to do all this padlock, protect, because the children, the children in her household maybe, because somebody paid her and pushed because it wasn't happening soon enough. So they moved forward with a stupid unconstitutional fucking plan and violated everybody's rights on a Tuesday.
Somebody's got to save the children, though.
Well, hold on. We do have to make a couple quick notes. We do want to send a big shout out to the C word with a big old super chat who says, "Be nicer to New York. Their weed is terrible." Yes, and we also want to send another big thank you to Miss Leah Patrick, who also says disabled medical patients should have access to safe housing and safe medicines and be able to grow it.
Not safe banking, though.
Well, I mean, if they're able to grow it, they don't necessarily need safe banking because they can just collect that cash and just bank it at their house, put it underneath their mattress.
True, they don't need to show it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all for those super chats. We appreciate the support.
Very much. We really appreciate that. What I want to say here, man, about these politicians and everything, you can't like lay everything on them, but calling them out for shit like this is essential. The reason why they were touting those numbers, they were being loud as possible about those on Juneteenth when they should have been with the people, was because this was going on right outside of her office. And so her team, her PR team, their struggles and everything, guess what? We're up 27%. Guess what? We've got all these wins that are going on. Guess what? We shut down all these the illegal dispensaries. That's why they made all the noise to drown out what was really going on the street. So that's why I'm big love to Jimmy Devine for putting this out there and everybody else who covered the real shit that's going on the ground.
Shout out, Jimmy.
Where's Adam? You want to bring everybody in? Let's bring everyone in. I want to hear what Dr. T has to say on this right here.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to steal that. Listen.
Yeah, it's messed up. You did that. Dr. T, New York, the hot mess that it is. What do you think about this, Dr. T?
Yeah. Well, my training is in science and medicine, not really politics. But I would say that, I try to give everyone a chance. One love. I'm hoping that she does a better job. I would, if she's listening, I would suggest that she puts a sign-up sheet outside of the Office of Cannabis Control. Have everybody sign up who wants to have a license and give it all out. Get the people served first, and then start regulating them one at a time. So rather than this backwards way.
So you subscribe to the model of like let all the bodegas have a license.
Correct.
Okay, I'm not mad at that. I'm not that mad at that feeling at all. I mean,
you know what that would lead to? Deli style.
That would lead to deli style. That would be fantastic.
Deli style in New York makes sense to me.
Chopped cheese.
But they would never be able to control it with a track and trace system like how they have with all those different retailers. That would just be a nightmare for them. Metric would probably crash constantly. Oh, it would be just
because it doesn't already.
Exactly.
Servers in Florida.
They have BioTrack in New York, so it wouldn't be a problem for them.
BioTrack's even worse than Metric.
The second thing they need to do is to open up their borders to people bringing cannabis in from the outside, because that's what's happening right now.
Well,
anyway,
you know what, Dr. T, on that, and here we're going to go into a little bit of science on this for you, Dr. T. But until we have a baseline federal minimum for testing requirements, we cannot have interstate commerce at all, because you can't have a vape cart that tests clean in California and won't test clean in Oregon or vice versa or things like that and allow for interstate commerce. You have to have a federal baseline minimum for testing, and we don't have that, and we're not even close to getting there.
Right.
But we spent about like $20 million.
Why can't New York test?
A Republican trying to.
What's that?
Borders.
New York could test, Dr. T, but as far as for how all of these systems work, product before it goes to a retail has to be tested and all of that. And you can't just say, oh, we're gonna have this California product, we're gonna ship it to New York untested and let a lab in New York test it. That system's not gonna work.
Well, I mean, you can ship it to New York, test it, and then have a lab in New York test it again. But these states don't all test for the same things, though, Dr. T. That's why I'm saying we have to have some type of a federal baseline minimum as far as testing requirements, and then states can add on other things that they think that they should add on for those different products. But until we have a federal baseline minimum, you're never going to have interstate trade.
You should take all the legal states that are testing and see who's has the best and most accurate results, you should go with that testing method. Make it the standard.
I've got
That's
a federal baseline
happening.
minimum. That takes about 2 seconds to get. Yeah, I'll give them one.
Oh, you'll give them one?
You want a federal baseline? Yeah.
Yeah, we need a federal baseline minimum, Dr. T. That's a super important thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, we need Dr.
Not
Jean,
difficult.
Dr. Jean Talleyrand.
All right.
The national.
We've been looking at these flowers and.
Go ahead, Dr. T.
We've been looking at these flowers in California for a long time. I mean, we've got a lot of information on them. It's not going to change. You know, we've been doing it for quite a while here, 20 plus years. Lots of data.
Agreed.
Well, we need lab standards in states first, right? Because I mean, depending on what method you're using for testing, even potency, you're going to get even testing potency, you're going to get vastly different results, whether you're using a mass spec or a different piece of equipment. It's also very, very, very
Right.
delicate equipment. So we're going to need to come together and actually find metrics for what our standards are for testing, period, right? A lot of these things that we're testing for new cannabinoids and things like that, because people don't want to pay for them. These extra tests are expensive. They're going to take different media than other things. So we're going to have to figure out what's required, even at a state level, how to do that on a consistent basis, accurate basis, come up with one method and one standardized situation for everything across the board. And we can't even do that state specific right now or lab to lab. So it's going to
Well, isn't that what California's doing? They changed the regulations to standardized testing in California, right?
Well,
that's why.
Yeah, they're trying. They're trying to do it. They're trying to initiate that, but
they're trying. It's still very difficult to get those methods validated because the entity that's doing it is struggling a bit.
Yeah, the central problem with all of this is that the potencies are reported on a dry weight basis. However, none of the cannabis sold is sold bone dry. So that means the lab has to dry the cannabis sample. And therein lies all of the error, because each lab have different SOPs for drying that sample. And guess what? The way the labs make money is they get as many samples through that process as they possibly can, right? So that means they dry them really quick. And when you dry cannabis, you not only remove water, guess what? You remove other volatiles like terpenes. And all of that drives your THC number up, because what was containing water, terpenes, all the water and terpenes are gone, right? So that's how you can basically get a higher THC number by, and when they do these drying techniques too, the thing that's problematic there is that if they do it quickly, they'll actually end up decarboxylating. And when you decarboxylate, you also lose weight. So that's part of the problem why it's problematic. Pairwise comparisons between any two labs, let alone across an entire state.
Well, the problem's not insurmountable, though. You know, it's just a protocol issue. You create the right protocol, we all follow it.
Part of the pressure is, again, having a metric for the transaction of large quantities of product. THC is that metric, right? What's the THC potency? So there's a lot of, sort of fingers in the kettle to basically move that THC number up, because the higher the THC number, the higher value that material would obtain.
Perceived value.
Now, when the extractor right. But when the extractor gets that, and it's based on some artificially inflated number, and based on like 20% THC, we should get 10 kilos out of this batch, and we're only getting 5 kilos. Well, that tells you again that there's a lot of numbers that aren't, lining up because of the pressures of prohibition. They gotta hang their number on, or have to hang their hat on some number, and the number is the THC number, unfortunately.
Fair enough. And on that, we got to keep this train rolling. We got to roll into a commercial, and we're going to be right back.